All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the new Ridgeline podcast. I'm Devin Dunnigan, and here with me is Mr. Stephen Mott. How you doing, brother?
Great brother Jake Z, drummer.
All righty, so this is going to be the very first episode of our brand new podcast, and pretty much the kind of simple objective of what the podcast is going to be. It's pretty much going to be the melting pot of different things. Pretty much whatever we want to do, we're going to do it. If we want to do a movie commentary, if we want to do an album review, news, just shooting the crap, whatever. I mean, we're just going to do it. And it's kind of going to be more in vain to the DTM podcast used to be back in the day, longer episodes, kind of more or less an analysis of the different stuff that we're talking about. And I'm definitely looking forward to where this podcast is going to go. And with the first episode here, I figured it would be pretty interesting to tackle pretty much a fan favorite by this band. And that is the 1983 album by Kiss, Lick It Up. So, released 1983, their 11th studio record, and produced for his last time with the band by Michael James Jackson. Michael James Jackson had produced the four new tracks on Killers, Creatures of the Night in its entirety, this album. And he did come back to do the drum tracks for Animalize, but this will be his final stand as an actual producer. And I love this record. I have always enjoyed this record. I mean, this was a big deal at the time because, I mean, of course, this is the first album without makeup for Kiss. And pretty much at this point, they had to do it because Kiss was done by the time Creatures of the Night came around. And I mean, it was just one of those things to where the band had run its course and they had pretty much nearly broken up a couple of times due to infighting between the band members. And I mean, eventually Peter Criss left in 1980, and then Ace Frehley left in 1982, solidifying Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons full control of the band. And I mean, on this record, you've got Eric Carr, of course. He had played on the last couple of Kiss albums, and you had Vinnie Vincent, who pretty much got the guitar spot by default because they really didn't want anyone else but Ace Frehley to be the guitar player in the band. And I mean, it wasn't until they went on tour that he was finally hired as a guitar player, even though he had played on majority of Creatures of the Night. He had participated in some of the songwriting aspects of the album, and he played, I believe, on 6 of the 9 tracks on that record. And then basically the whole album was them auditioning guitarists. And eventually he went out on tour with them. And then when they got back off of tour, he went into the studio with them for this record and helped write and record this record with the band. And this will be his final album. And I'll get a little bit more into kind of the aftermath of him maybe toward the end of the podcast. But I mean, solid guitar player. He plays on the whole entire album except for one single solitary guitar solo in which Rick Derringer plays it, and I'll talk about that when we get to that track. But I mean, this was a pretty big change for the band, and the first album to go platinum. I believe this was the first one since, I want to say, Dynasty to actually be certified, because any of the rest of the records before that had not been certified. And I just read I was wrong. It was actually Unmasked, which was in 1980, but close enough though. But I mean, this was the band kind of stepping out and attempting to reinvent themselves. And honestly, this is kind of the first band effort since Love Gun, really, because I mean, the rest of the albums up to this point had session musicians coming in, and I mean, whether you consider Vinnie Vincent a full-on member, which I mean, legally he was, and he didn't ever sign a contract, but I mean, this is as close to a band effort that the band would get since Love Gun. And I mean, just there were so many session musicians throughout the remainder with the previous records, and I mean the remainder of kind of the original band era of the group. And I mean it's just interesting, the whole backstory with Kiss. I mean, just reading up on it, and overall overall the things that had happened. And I mean, this was also the first with Mercury. The It says Mercury in Casablanca here, and I didn't think Casablanca was still around at this point. I could be very well wrong though. It may have been overseas distribution. It could have very well been, but I mean, yeah, I enjoy this record. This to me is the last great Kiss album, and I love it. I mean, I love this friggin' record. Two videos off the album for the two singles, Lick It Up and All Hell's Breaking Loose. And videos are 80s cheese, but I mean, I enjoy the videos. So, I mean, we'll get more into the track by tracks here in just a minute. I mean, that's kind of a long, drawn out backstory for you right off the bat. So, Steve, talk your initial thoughts and opinions on this record.
My initial, well, the thing is I've heard this album uh, a total of 2 times. You know, before we're recording this particular episode, or our inaugural episode of the new Ridgeline. But anyway, I thought I was going to mess that name up for a second. But anyway, I will say that just to head it off, I've never heard of this album before Devin suggested we review this. For whatever reason, I think it's just because they have a lot of albums, and I believe Devin said that this is their 11th studio album. So, and this was only in what, 83. So I mean, but I really I will say I'll just say this without giving nothing away, that between the first time of me hearing this and the second time of me hearing this and me taking notes on it the second time, I really don't, my opinions didn't change any. I just say that, and that's all I'll say for now. You'll hear my full opinions later, and back to you, Dev.
Alrighty, and just a small little tidbit before we move on. When they released the album in Japan, they actually featured a obi sheet cover, which had the band from the Creatures of the Night tour on the cover. And the weird thing is that they have two shots of Gene and Vinnie Vincent from the Creatures tour, but the shots of Paul and Eric are from the Elder era, and that I found that a little bit interesting. But that cover's pretty interesting, and there's also a Photoshop cover floating around online of the band. It's the album cover as the album has it, but it's got the band in makeup, because I mean, this is kind of the sister album to the previous record, Creatures of the Night. I mean, even down to the overall sound and the vibe of the album. I mean, it's very much in vein of that previous record. But I mean, we can go ahead and get into the songs here, and we'll start this album out with the first track on here, Exciter. So this continues in the vein of Creatures of the Night with a very heavy song to start things off. And I love this song. I think this is a awesome song, performed live on the tour sporadically. They added it in, took it out here and there. I believe they took it out for good to add in another song we'll talk about a little bit later. But I mean, I enjoy this song. I think this is a great song, and I mean, really, really cool song and a great opener. And Rick Derringer plays the guitar solo on this song, which makes the song, the one track on the album that does not feature Vinnie Vincent on a guitar solo. So, I mean, written by Paul Stanley and Vinnie Vincent. So, I mean, great track. So, Steve, what are your thoughts on Exciter?
Well, I didn't think a lot of it, to be honest. And the band for this whole album, especially this song, sounds really tight. It sounds like a really good band. They were really working well off of one another. And I mean, that's all I can say. They were really tight. I mean, you get the gist of that. And the thing is, this song, I don't know a lot about Kiss, but just bear with me here. It sounds like something off of Crazy Nights. But anyway, besides the point, that's just me being off the wall. But anyway, this is not a very good song at all. And just to carry on from my notes just a little bit off of my little tangent, tangent number one, this album sounds way too, I'm going to say, underproduced because that's probably not the right word, but like it's not, it sounds like kind of bare and it sounds decent. It doesn't sound like a demo or anything like that. It doesn't sound muddy or anything. It sounds clear production and all and good, but it still sounds kind of bare and too spaced out or something. Like they kind of needed to bring the vocals up in the mix a lot and kind of make that more the focus. But it's kind of like it's evenly mixed everything from here to here to here, but it's not. It really shouldn't be that way. The vocals really need to be the focus and kind of higher in the mix because and really in Kiss songs, that's kind of what makes it, in my opinion. But it just wasn't it for this album. They didn't do it that way. But anyway, so back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number two on this album, Not for the Innocent. So this is an outtake from Creatures of the Night. The demo for that version of the song featured Paul and Gene sharing the vocals. And I actually kind of would have preferred that, honestly. But nonetheless, this is an amazing song. This just has this kind of very dark, gloomy, brooding vibe to it. And I really, really enjoy this song. I mean, it's kind of just, it's a typical Gene song of the time. And I mean, this whole album continues in the kind of what I call metal Kiss. So, I mean, Kiss going traditional heavy metal. And this is a really good song. And I enjoy this track quite a bit. So, Steve, what are your thoughts on Not for the Innocent?
Well, I will agree with you on this one thing because of the metal aspect of what you said because that's this very thing I thought with this whole album is it kind of just gave me a metal vibe to it, if you know what I'm saying. And well, I'll just say this first of all that the riffs sounded very straightforward and generic. Generic is more of the kind of harsher way to say it. Bland would be the less harsh, but I mean, you get the point. But I think just because of that fact, it sounds like kind of like something ACDC might do or something, or maybe even something like I don't know. It's kind of far out, but like maybe Van Halen might do if it's something like if it's the riff sort of like to Panama a little bit, but just to open or like to I know I'm getting kind of far out, but it's like you just have to think hard. Like that. Oh, it's just the open string kind of typical rock riff. It's just overused in this album, and then they try to use this like like metal type of stuff over it, and interspersed in the songs throughout. Not vocally, but just with some of the guitar parts, and it's like off the wall. Like, they should not have done that. Kiss does not sound right doing that. It just doesn't sound like they're trying to. It just doesn't sound like Kiss to me. But from what I've heard of Kiss and what I know about Kiss, which is not a lot, to be honest. But I don't know. It's all right. Let me see from my notes. I went off on a way far away place, and I only got to my first sentence here. Let's see. Kiss has the same drum rhythm for every song that they have ever done in their life. This is obviously a kind of going overboard with that, but if you get what I'm saying, but you get the point of it. It's just really on this particular album, it's like they just chose the most typical rhythm of rock and just went with it with every song. And I think they should have started with kind of different ideas. They kind of just tried to be too straightforward with everything. And it just sounds like, honestly, it sounds like something Aerosmith might do, this song. Mainly vocally with that part of it. I don't know why it just reminded me of that a little bit, but that's kind of far out too. But anyway, I just did not like it. So I just went on a long circle just to tell you that I do not like it. So, which I should have done that first. But anyway, back to you.
Alrighty, so then we move to the next track on the album, track number 3, the title track, Lick It Up. So this is probably, well, it's no probably to it. This is this album's most well-known song. It's still in the set list to this day, and I think it has rightfully earned its place in the set list. One of the 3 songs they actually started playing from this era live with the original lineup on the farewell tour, and a lot of people get burnt out on it, but I enjoy the song. I like it. I mean, maybe it should have been a bigger hit for the band because I mean it has this very anthemic sort of vibe to it that I think should have worked more in their favor. And I mean, this did, I believe it closed some of the shows during the succeeding tours for this album. But I mean, I enjoy it. I love this song, and it's earned its place in history. So, Steve, take the title track.
This song itself, you know, I could sort of keep up with it, but you know, I don't know. It still kind of just sucked to me. It's like I can relate that to all these songs on this album. Like from the time they first start off, it's like it's just the structure is just the same over and over again. They should have mixed it up a little bit. Like it's just like intro. I mean, just the intro verse chorus, intro verse chorus. I mean, over and over. And it seems like these other bands I've heard kind of mix it up. And that's something else I've noticed about this whole album is that all these songs are either a little over 4 minutes or a little under 4 minutes. So they're around 4 minutes. What I'm saying? And I'm thinking they did that on purpose. I think the idea of kind of drawing these songs out on the albums more. And I had a word for it, but I can't think of it at the moment. Kind of, just kind of, fleshing them out. That's what I was going to say. Kind of fleshing them out because I think that kind of works well with this stuff. But it's just like they're fleshed out, but it's just kind of the same thing over and over. Like it needs another part or something, or it needs to be mixed up as far as the overall organization of the whole thing. And two, really, I mean, this is a really halfway decent song, uh, but it just kind of gets on my nerves. Like when I listen to it, it just makes me want to throw stuff at the wall. It just makes me mad every time I hear it. That's how stupid it is. So back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number 4, Young and Wasted. So this is pretty much Kiss doing early thrash metal, and I mean, this was the year "Kill 'Em All" by Metallica came out. But I mean, this is proto thrash, and I really, really enjoy this song. This is possibly maybe my favorite track on the album. I'm not real sure about that, but I'll just say it's my favorite track on the album. It was prior, but I don't know about it now. I haven't thought much about it, but I love the song. I mean, it was played live in the set and actually lasted for more than one tour. They did play it on the Animalized tour, which was the tour for the album that succeeded this one. And Eric Carr actually sang vocals on that version, giving him, instead of one song, two songs. And I mean, of course, if people don't know, Eric Carr was the band's second drummer. But I mean, regardless of either version, it's still an awesome song. I love it. And not too much more I can say about the song. I really, really enjoy this track, and I'd actually love to hear them throw this one out on the End of the Road tour. I know that will never happen because this is pretty much an album track, but I mean, I'd love to hear them mix it up a little bit and throw something like this in the set list because the diehards would definitely appreciate it. But I digress. Steve, take this track.
Well, Young and Wasted, number 4, if I'm not mistaken. For some reason, this song reminds me of something Molly Hatchet might do. Now, don't ask me why, mainly just because of the riff, but just a random, point. But anyway, about 1 minute and 10 seconds into the song, it already had aggravated me and made me just really just never want to look at this album again. Like, I never wanted to see this album cover again in my life. By the way, I kind of like the album cover. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of bland, but I don't know. You can tell it's kind of this. You can kind of tell it's thrown together, but just look at it. It's not anything special. All it is just the words, and then just the four guys, and then a white background. I think, if I remember right. I'm trying to get to it so I can look at it. I'm gonna look like a fool if it's not a white background. But anyway, it's just like kind of bland looking is the point. And that kind of corresponds to the whole album, really. Bland, thrown together in 5 seconds. Not a lot of thought put into it. And I mean, just doing something to be doing something. Honestly, is the vibe I get from this album. The whole thing. Now, there are some good spots. They are kind of sparse and few, but there are some good spots. It just kind of seems thrown together and just crap. I mean, uh, let's get away from the stupid jokes. I've got it in my notes. I said it earlier, but I noticed all the songs on this album are around 4 minutes. And I wrote that again. But anyway, that I thought that was kind of interesting. That's the one thing I like about this album, that they did that. And another thing I like about this album is kind of that they just I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. The songwriting, the lyrics were pretty decent. I mean, that's another decent point of this album. The lyrics were not bad, but everything else was, and it was just bland overall. And this song in particular was just not good. Early on into the song, I was just like mad and aggravated, and it just got on my nerves for some reason. I don't know why that song just had that effect on me. But anyway, back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number 5 in the end of side one, Give Me More. So This is the first song on the album I would probably consider to be a filler track, but it was performed on the tour, so I mean, I guess you really can't count it as being filler, but I really enjoy the song. It's Fast and Furious Paul, and I mean, the lyrics are kind of whatever. I mean, they're kind of very stupid, but I mean, I like the song for what it is. I mean, musically, it's amazing. Like I said, lyrically, it's whatever. It kind of has the kind of reputation that Keep Me Coming off of Creatures of the Night has, with it having kind of this weird chorus, and this one's the same way. Has Paul repeating the hook of the chorus a bunch. Both songs had that same thing, but I mean, I like the track. I mean, live, it was succeeded by Vinnie Vincent's drum solo, and I mean, guitar solo. Man, that's a bad mess up, but I mean, it's a good song. I like it. It's just lyrically, it's not the best in the world, but I do like it. So, Steve, give me more.
Well, you know, this particular song just did not strike me as really anything. I just kind of listened to it and I was like, okay, and that was my only reaction. And I listened to it again right after that, and I had the same thing. It was just like nothing. It has no content whatsoever. And for as far as the whole album, I'll get to this. The production. I always get to some form of talk about that. I don't mind the production overall. I kind of it's pretty decent sounding overall album, but it has a problem for me that it seems like there's something missing in the mix, or even multiple things missing, but at least one thing. Like they needed to have at least one more something, like another rhythm guitar or another lead. They really, I'll just say this period. They needed lead guitar through this whole album, and you know, it just did not have that. This album does not have lead guitar. I mean, I'm not talking about the solos. That's different. The lead guitar throughout the verses and such is that. It's just not there. There's nothing, and it needs that. Rock music, just plain out, needs that. And I know I keep throwing back to Van Halen, but Van Halen, for example, you got Eddie Van Halen on guitar, uh, and so on their records, you don't really need anything else because he plays, you know, all this tapping and dive bomb stuff in between it. You don't really need it because he can be the rhythm and the lead guitarist at the same time and doesn't really need anything else. But this guitarist, the way and really just because of the way these songs are structured, it's just not. There's no. It needs it. It needs another lead guitar player just to play lead like over it, and it's just not there. And two, it seems like this whole album was kind of a keyboard album. Like it kind of it was kind. I know that sounds weird, but like just hear me out. It was kind of like one of those albums that has some epic type songs in it. These not necessarily like huge hits or anything, but like that these songs that could have sounded better if they sounded a little more like commercialized. And I usually don't say that something needs to be more commercial sounding, but this time I'm going to. This was too bland. It would have sounded better, more commercial sounding, and more keyboardy, and more lead guitar, and the vocals needed to be higher in the mix, especially the background vocals. And I will say also that this whole album really needed more background vocals overall. I think that would have it just sounds like this whole album just sounds kind of bare in that way too. Not enough backing vocals. So anyway, that was a very long drawn out thing, but I'm thinking this episode is going to be a bit longer than usual or some of our past episodes because I think they're gonna go. It's gonna go over better that way. But anyway, this song's bad. So back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so then we flip this sucker over to side two with All Hell's Breaking Loose. So this was the second single. Of course, like I said at the opening of the episode, a video was made for this song. Possibly the better of the two, but maybe is this the first rap rock song? I mean, pretty much. I mean, that's what this track is a rap metal song. And I mean, I really enjoy the track. I think it's a great song. They did perform this live, I believe, during the latter part of the tour. They started pulling this out, performing it. And I think that kind of took the place of Exciter on the tour once they stopped performing that altogether. But I love the song. I think it's great. And originally, this was written by Eric Carr, and then basically Paul, the rest of the band took the song and kind of turned it into something different and kind of incorporated the more spoken word sort of rap elements into it. And I like the track, and I would actually not mind to see them pull this out on tour or something. I mean, it would be pretty interesting because I mean, it went over well live when they were playing it live on tour. So I mean, I like it. I think it's great. I think it's good live. So there you go. So Steve, take All Hell's Breaking Loose.
Well, this one, yeah, it's bad too. I will say all the guitar solos on this album sucked, and I forgot who you said the guitar player's name was, but he didn't need to quit his day job. Furthermore, let's see, and I think this particular song sucks. Verbatim notes. Furthermore, uh, especially this song, but for this whole album, in certain spots throughout the whole thing, is trying to be metal sounding, and it just does not come off at all. There's your hole number 6 for my notes, and I can come off of that and just say that I've already said that about the metal thing, and Devin has too, but it just does not go over well, and it just kind of struck me this particular song the most that they were trying to go in that direction, and I don't know why. They were just trying to do something different from their past, I guess, or they were just trying to be unique or trying something different. I don't know. For whatever reason, they got together for when they were in talks of doing this album and just said, I think we should put some metal, interspersed with metal stuff in there. And I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, it's not even a good idea. Metal is metal, and rock is rock. Leave the two alone. You know, do not try to intersperse each one. It does not work. IMO, in my opinion, especially with Kiss, especially with this style of stuff. But furthermore, this song in particular is just not good. The songwriting on this whole album, crap. Now I will say there's only one song on this album that I like at all. And obviously I'm saying that's the best one on the album because it's the only one that I even remotely can stand without throwing stuff at the wall and getting really mad. And so back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number 7, A Million to One. So this is the quintessential Paul Stanley ballad. I mean, kind of started on Creatures of the Night and would continue on throughout the remainder of their career up through Psycho Circus. That's when they let Peter do the ballad, and then I mean there were ballads that Paul had done on the previous records, but I mean it was not as kind of in your face as this era was. But I love it. I think it's a fantastic song. I mean, I enjoy this track quite a bit. Was performed live by Paul Stanley years after the fact when they were doing or when he was doing the Live to Win tour and he was doing a solo thing. He pulled this song out and performed it, went over really well live, and that was kind of around the time that his voice started to give right after that tour and all. But I mean, really, really good song and really great guitar work by Vinnie Vincent. I mean, that solo on this track is really, really good, very melodic. And I mean, saying Vinnie Vincent is melodic is maybe off putting the song because he's really not the most melodic guitar player. But regardless, I love the song. So, Steve, take 1,000,000 to 1.
Number 7, A Million to One. This is the only song on this album that I like. I sort of like this song, and it's only because of the chorus. I like the chorus a lot, and I mean, really, that's the only thing good about this whole album is the chorus in this song. If you can believe that, that's my opinion. All the riffs on this album sound like the most generic rock thing I've ever heard in my life. Uh, and from here on, from here to the rest of the album, till 7 to 10 track numbers, this you can tell they were just trying to, especially this one, they were just trying to get through it. And it seems like at this point the band was just so tired of the bad songwriting and just so ready to get through with this recording session that they just played the same crap over and over. And just honestly, that goes for the whole album. Like they were just so tired of this bull crap that they said, I'm gonna just get through this so I can get paid. And no matter how much I hate these stupid songs, and that I'm just gonna kind of muddle through it and just play the most random crap, just straight beat ever, and just maybe do a couple of random time rolls, and then that's it. And then no cymbal hits whatsoever. I mean, I'm just kidding about that. I don't really remember, honestly. It doesn't seem like there were, but this is a decent song. And to me, this if anything, if anything was going to be a single, this would be it. But not really. I mean, now to think about it, not really. It's just to me that's the best song on the album. But anyway, that was track number 7, and from here on out, it gets a lot worse. So I don't know. IMO. Back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number 8, Fits Like a Glove. So this is the third track that made it after this tour for this record. It made it on up into the 90s. They stopped performing this on after the Hot in the Shade tour, and it's never been performed since, except by Gene during some of his solo outings and stuff like that. But I like the song. I mean, kind of, I guess you would consider this to be somewhat filler, but I mean, like I said, it was performed live, so I mean, whatever. But I mean, you can tell this doesn't have any Vincent's involvement as far as songwriting goes, because I mean, this is kind of getting into the territory that Gene would get into on the next several albums with stuff like Murder in High Heels or even No No No. And I mean, I like those songs, but I mean, you get the gist. I mean, it doesn't have the level of songwriting the rest of the album has. And I think this is a little bit more of a weaker track compared to the rest of the album, but I still do love the song. And I mean, the first out of 2 songs to feature no involvement from Vinnie Vincent except for him playing on the song. But I mean, nothing much else for me to say about this track. Steve, you take it.
All right. Number 8, Fits Like a Glove. I'm going to try to be patient with this stuff because this stuff really made me pretty mad listening to it. Um, Stupid song. Uh, I just kind of thought that the band just, I could sense that the band was not into the song. I mean, the band was tight and all through the whole album. I will say that. There was no. Now I will now that I think about it, I don't remember what song it was, but at the very beginning of one of the songs, at the end of the intro, going into the verse or whatever, it seemed like there was one drum part that didn't sound quite right. It could have been a mess up, but it probably wasn't. He probably did it on purpose. It just seemed like it just sounded a little off to me. Just considering that if you listen to the rest of the album, I mean, the drum parts are kind of just straight. They're just straight and kind of just bland, uh, and really, it kind of makes a lot of sense to me when you talk about Devin. When you talk about stuff like that these different people had involvement with the songwriting in this album, because I don't know where they were getting some of these other band members from, but I just don't think they're really that top notch. They're not. They're just not as at the same level as the ones that they had before, and that shows you I don't know nothing about Kiss, but I've heard enough of Kiss to realize that it's not the same. Not to my ears. It's just not really the same, and I mean that in a bad way. It's different, but it's different in a bad way. It's like they were not up to that level. It was just not. This is like a subpar album. This is the worst song on the album right here. I'll go ahead and say it. This song sucks. So back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number 9 on this album, Dance All Over Your Face. So the same thing with Fits Like a Glove. No writing from Vinnie Vincent. And it shows, I mean, this is another filler track. This was not performed live. And I mean, you had Paul rapping sort of on All Hell's Breaking Loose, and you have Gene pretty much rapping on this song. I used to flat out hate this song, but now listening back to it, getting ready for the review, I like the song. Actually, I may actually say I love the song. I mean, I had fun with it listening to it. It's just a fun song. I like the overall track, and I mean, it's kind of Gene doing the Zeppelin thing, like Paul's kind of known for throughout the '80s. He'd do kind of his Zeppelin groove, and I mean stuff like Radar for Love, and He'd Keep Me Coming on the previous record, and then he would do Get All You Can Take on the next one, and after that he wouldn't do another Zeppelin song. But I like the track. Like I said, it's a filler song, but I enjoy it. I think it's a good song. So I mean, there you go. So Steve, take Dance All Over Your Face.
I'm going to take this song to a much, much, much darker place. I'm going to take it to a place that is much darker even than the darkest eyes of Michael Myers. This is putrid, disgusting, menacing. Makes me want to punch the wall. Uh, and it seems to me like the singer is just screaming at the top of his lungs at times. Uh, at times. And has no melody to the song whatsoever. So back to you, Devin.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number 10, and on the 8th day. So this is the return of Vinnie Vincent, and I mean, it shows. I love this song. This is a great closer for the album, kind of the rock and roll all night of the '80s, but it was never performed live. But it would have been actually interesting to hear this live. And I enjoy the song. I think this may actually be the closest to '70s Kiss that the album gets. And the basis of this song was used for the song on the first Vinnie Vincent Invasion album, Boys Are Gonna Rock. and basically the music and the chorus was used. I don't think the overall melody of the verses were used at all. But I like it. I think it's a great closer to the album and should have been performed live. I think it's a great song. So Steve, take In on the Eighth Day.
All right. Because he sucks.
Alrighty, so that's pretty much the album. I don't know of any bonus tracks or, well, not bonus tracks, outtakes or anything like that from the album. I mean, I love the album. It's pretty much a fan favorite. A lot of people consider this to be the last great Kiss album, which I do. And I think the best album they would make after this actually came out several years ago now, Monster in 2012. And I think that was a very good return from the band. But just a little bit on Vinnie Vincent real quick. So, I mean, the aftermath of this album, they go out on tour, and Vinnie Vincent gets fired midway through the tour because of his quote unquote unethical behavior. And pretty much they were at a show and he went off on a guitar solo during the middle of the show. And then at some point he didn't want to stop performing his guitar solo during his set time in the show. Basically, Paul came out, introduced him, and he just continued performing. And then, from what I understand, both of them came to almost a fist fight backstage. But I mean, he was fired then, and then they rehired him because they couldn't find anyone else on such short notice, and they had a tour to complete. And I mean, it was also a thing of he wouldn't sign a contract to join the band officially because he wanted something. I believe it said he wanted a percentage of their profits or something like that, and that was not going to happen. So eventually, after the tour happened, he was fired, and they brought in Mark St. John, who didn't last but just a little while, and then Bruce Kulick was brought in, and he lasted up till the point that they reunited in the 90s. And I mean, Vinnie Vincent did reconnect with the band in the early 90s when they were doing Revenge, but he started some junk again, and basically they cut ties with him again. And I know he and Gene have reconnected more recently, but I don't think it went anywhere at all. I think it was kind of the same old thing. And I mean, the guy's, from what I understand, a complete insane person. But I mean, I enjoy this album. One of my favorite Kiss albums for sure. And I give this album a 10 out of 10. Solid. So, Steve, you take your final thoughts and opinions on the record and your ranking or rating of that.
Yeah, I sense some sarcasm in that statement, but because I think you know what might be coming next. Let's see, it might have anything to do with something that's shaped like an egg, a goose egg. Oh my, a 0 out of 10. I just don't know.
Alrighty, so that is the episode. And like, comment, subscribe, and go over there and subscribe to the New Ridgeline Podcast YouTube page. I'm sure if you just type it in, it'll come up. And we'll post this episode over on there. And yeah, I mean, that's the first episode. This is kind of the general gist of what we're going to be doing with the show. And we'll be back with another episode very, very soon. So we hope you all enjoy this episode. And God bless you all. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.